Hello and welcome to the Smart Divorce podcast. Today we're going to be talking about preparing for divorce as part of our current series, and I'm really happy to be joined today by the very fabulous Arabella Paul. Arabella is a divorce coach and she's absolutely wonderful in supporting her clients. Those that I've worked with as well have been just so happy with the support and the work that she does for them. Now, you may not be aware what a divorce coach is, and we're going to let you know all about what it involves, how they can help you through your divorce, and what an extra additional brilliant service it is. So the thing that we always say is that it's really important to have the three pillars. If you think of a stool with three legs, you need your emotional, your legal, and your financial support through your divorce. And if you're missing one of those legs, then your stool may well fall over. So I'm going to introduce you to Arabella. I'm going to ask her to tell you a bit about herself and about how she became a divorce coach. Welcome, Arabella. Nice to see you.
Lovely to see you too. Thank you so much for having me on.
It's an absolute pleasure. So how did you get into divorce coaching, and how has your journey into it kind of moved through the process? Because you didn't start off in divorce coaching, did you? Far
No,
from it.
far from that. Yeah, my initial career was in investment banking. I used to work on the trading floor, the equity trading floor, for almost 10 years. But I gave that up when I had my children. So a 12-year career break or full-time parent, not break really.
No, not at all.
Yeah. And then in 2020, I found myself facing divorce. And from then, I started working as a headhunter and focused on financial services. But I was unfortunately made redundant from that. And so I was looking at what I could do. And all my roles have been about people. And I love people, I love helping people. And I had considered coaching before, but I thought, what better thing I could do that be a life coach that niches in breakup and divorce. And so I trained in that, and now I help people.
Here we go. Here we are.
Yes.
Um, so for those who are not aware, and the word is getting out about divorce coaching, I think. And there are some very well-known divorce coaches out there now. Tom Nash, Sarah Davidson, to name just two. And I'm going to get shot at dawn by Sue Palmer Con because I couldn't quite get her name on the end of my tongue. Sorry, Sue. She is absolutely up there as well. So, there are some really big names in divorce coaching now, but still, I do feel that a large amount of the population don't know about divorce coaching, just like they don't know you should have a divorce financial planner, but that'll
Yeah.
be a story for another day. So what's divorce coaching? How is it different from therapy?
Right. Now, that's a really good question. So, the difference between therapy and divorce coaching is this is how I see it. So, therapy is very necessary, not always that you. So, therapy, I see it as treating past traumas and uh, looking at the emotions in life. Sorry, I'm going to have to stop again. Divorce coaching is very much about looking at the emotions around divorce and forward thinking, creating a future. As a divorce coach, I help people practically getting all the paperwork together, getting a strategy together, demystifying the whole divorce process. But at the same time, I can also help with emotions around divorce, whether that's overwhelm or guilt or just complete and utter sadness. But I can't help with sort of deep-seated things that might have been going on in your childhood that a therapist can deal with.
Sure. So sometimes it's necessary to have a therapist as well as a divorce coach.
Absolutely. And the two can really complement each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, and you can correct me if this sounds like nonsense, but for me, divorce coaches is the bit that gives practical advice that helps people through their divorce, that holds their hand through the process, but means they're not having to cry on their very expensive lawyers on their very expensive time while the clock's going. Does that feel like a fair thing to say?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think you've got it spot on. I like to call myself your divorce best friend, but basically, I am the support that you have going through your divorce. Impartial and objective. So rather than a friend who can be a bit biased, who knows the whole story, I sit back from that, I look at patterns, I listen, but yes, holding the hand all the way through. And indeed, so that the client isn't spending numerous hours talking to solicitor, crying to the solicitor, when actually that's sometimes irrelevant to the actual case.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's hugely important. And we've talked, you mentioned grief, and I've mentioned crying. This is it's a deep-seated emotional experience to go through divorce. And you do go through the grief cycle, and it might be useful just to talk a little bit about the experience of grief, and how that shows up in people's emotions during particularly the early days of divorce.
Yeah, absolutely. Divorce is an emotional roller coaster, and the grief life cycle, you have denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And they don't all have to go in a certain order. These feelings can come at any time, but the last one is always acceptance. But when you're going through a breakup or divorce, there's no obvious path. It takes different people, different amounts of time until they feel they've moved on to the next stage. It's just completely, it's different for each person, how long that's going to last. But what they have to realize that, feeling really sad, or whatever emotion they're going through is completely normal, and they do need to sit with their feelings as well.
Yeah, I love the idea of sitting with your feelings. I first came across that in oh, I'm not going to be able to remember a name. Apologies, audience. This is the way my head works at the minute. It's the American lady who's not Brené Brown, the other one. Anyway, it'll come back to me. Maybe
Yep.
I'll put it in the show notes. Um, but I remember hearing like sitting with your feelings from her, and I was like, Glennon Doyle. There you go. It's come back to
Oh,
me.
brilliant.
um, her talking about sitting with your feelings, and actually letting yourself experience them, and that's really important, isn't it? Particularly in these early days of divorce.
Yeah, I think it is. I think you do. And I think also naming your emotions is really important. So yeah, sitting, accepting your feelings and accepting that this is a completely normal part of the process. It's part of the healing process.
Yeah, of course. I'm going to rewind us a little bit because we're already into the divorce process, and we're going to be talking about preparing yourself. So divorce can come from kind of different angles. So you may be the person who has got to the end of the marriage. It may be you may be the decision maker, and that could have come about for all sorts of reasons, but you may be the one who's kind of a slightly ahead because you're the one who wants to end the relationship. Or you might be on the receiving end and somebody's said, I want to end the relationship, and you're hearing that for the first time and dealing with that. Or the third option is that you've come together and you've both gone, do you know what, this just isn't working. So how can you prepare yourself from any of those three stages to move? Like, what's the first thing? Like, where do we go from feeling any of those three feelings?
Well, I think I always say to my clients when I first meet them, is have you given it your all first? Have you committed for at least 3 months before making this life-changing decision. I think it's really important that as you go through divorce, that you don't have any regrets. You know you've tried everything. I think that's important. Um, I think to prepare, for me, you've got to really think about staying civil, as hard as it is, depending on if you're the one that's made the decision or not made the decision. If you've got children, I think it's really important, even if it sort of goes against your grain, to love your kids more than you hate your ex. Because what research has showed is it's not divorce that harms them, it's actually conflict. So you really want to try to go through this process with as little conflict as possible. Um, Another thing you can do is file for divorce online yourself rather than a solicitor doing this. But this is, I'm jumping the gun a bit here talking about that. I would say you need to speak to at least five, if not more, solicitors, mediators, and financial advisors. And so you can get a feel for who's a really good fit for you, because you're going to be working with these people for a while. And as you say, you do need three legs to your stool: legal, financial, emotional. And that's your divorce team, your divorce core circle. And I think having those people around you really helps you moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I pinched the stool from Rangan Chatterjee. The stool is in one of his books, and he doesn't use it for those three particular items, but just should probably credit Rangan because it was his three stool idea. I do like it. Okay, yeah, totally agree with you. Where you've got children involved, it's vitally important to keep them front and center, but not put them in the middle. That's so important because that conflict can be the thing that really does impact children. Now, I know you work a lot with clients who are leaving abusive relationships, and there is a slightly different tack when you're leaving an abusive relationship, because that whole anger and staying in touch and being civil thing is different, isn't it? So
Yeah.
how if you're in that position, how do things change?
Yeah. Yeah. When you're in that sort of situation and you're parenting like that, there's certain things you can do in terms of um, from your side. You can't control the other person, but you can control how you behave.
Yeah.
And I think the way you communicate or respond to your ex-partner is very important. So, something called canned responses. I don't know if you've come across that.
Oh, no.
No.
Canned Heat by Jamiroquai, but not canned responses.
Responses. I think it's an American term. I think that's where it was coined.
Is it?
Basically, it's where it's just fact only.
Okay.
So this is mainly used when I suppose you're messaging each other on email or text, that sort of thing. Um, and if they sent you some sort of inflammatory message, rather than respond back, trying to explain yourself, putting emotion into it, which you can easily be led to do. Just take a step back, breathe, and just reply with fact only, or just thank you. Thank you, your response is noted, or thank you for the information, or I'll come back to you when I've thought about it further. But I would really take a step back and breathe before you respond to these messages. Um, in terms of co-parenting with someone like that, it's harder to co-parent. People talk about parallel parenting, and that's often what happens. You can't control what they're doing and how they're behaving with you, but you keep up your bargain from your side, Your children can see how you're responding, how you parent. I think that's hugely important.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. On the responses thing, I was once told, and it was quite a while ago, a couple of things. First thing is you can always write a response like "Rah," and never actually send it. Um,
Yep.
there's a slight danger of doing that in email. If you're going to do it in email, start a new email.
Yes,
Don't
you're
put the
correct.
don't put the address in because there's that danger that you kind of auto press send. That's not going to help anybody. So maybe you want to write it down. And there is also something about um, the process of putting pen to paper that
Yeah.
that changes the way the brain responds as well. So that might be worth doing. And another thing somebody suggested to me years ago, which I also have been known to do and have done it with clients as well, is actually print the message out and highlight, like go through it and just highlight the questions that are relating to fact, so that you've got your highlighter on the three sentences that actually require a response,
Yeah.
but require a response because they're asking for something factual, and then all the rest of it just don't read it, don't give it any airtime at all.
Exactly.
So yeah,
It's
I think that can be quite useful because there's so many inflammatory emails flirting about when you're at that stage as well, aren't there?
absolutely. And when I mentioned canned responses, another name can be called grey rocking. So it's
Oh,
almost you're just stopping it. So, they're like, "Blah, blah, 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 blah," and you're just there's nothing. You're being the wall or the grey rock. Um, and so that actually if you responded with emotion, then the person, which was the ex-partner, would want to come in with another more inflammatory message. But if you just grey rock it, it's almost like was it paper, scissors?
yeah, rock paper
Rock,
scissors.
paper, scissors. Rock, paper, scissors. That's how I see it in my mind's eye. So there's like, yeah, the scissors, and then you're just the rock. That you're just basically dulling, unsharpening. I don't think that's a word.
Call it blunted.
Blunting. You're blunting their scissors, is how I see it.
Yeah,
Because you're not reacting.
yeah,
And so they try and they try and they try.
yeah.
And
Nothing.
I think you're the winner then, if you're the grey rock, blunting their scissors.
Yeah,
Yes, making
cool.
their
No,
scissors.
I think that's absolutely spot on. You mentioned email, messaging, texting. There are so many ways of communicate. I nearly reached the end of my tether last week with I was looking for a message from somebody and I couldn't remember through what medium it had been sent to me, and I couldn't find the thing, whether it was on Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp or
Yeah.
text or email or whatever. And it's so hard to keep a track of. Um, and from a situation where you're divorcing somebody, you want to avoid them being able to come at you from all of the different methods of communication. And there are some options, aren't there?
Well, there are options. There are apps you can work with as a parent for parenting tool. There are various apps that you can use. I'm familiar with our family wizard, and that's actually really useful for only communicating on that app. They have a tool whereby when we're talking about inflammatory messages, if you want to send something which perhaps has got a certain tone or it's not using the right language, it might say to you, "Are you sure you want to send this?" So that's quite useful. It also records all the messages going back and forth. So that also sort of stops somebody perhaps from sending something they wouldn't otherwise. Or if they did, well, then it's just there in black and white, and that can be used later. But I would recommend if you're going through a divorce or breakup to not be in contact on social media, like unfriend them or whatever, but not just with them, I think with all their friends, mutual friends, because it can really ignite some of your emotions if you even see people that you had shared friends with, partying, doing things, and then your ex is in there somehow, and that can bring all the emotions to the surface again. So I would, sort of come off social media contact with that person so that you're only channeling it through perhaps an app if you're parenting.
That's definitely good advice, and our family wizard is certainly excellent. I would say that the only thing is that if you're in an abusive relationship, there can be a temptation for overkill in terms of just like huge, great, big, long messages with one sentence hidden in it somewhere that's giving you a piece of information that you need, and then that can kind of increase the abuse. The only thing I would say about it is that you're still getting date stamped messages. Those are being saved and recorded. Those are able to be, as far as I am aware, and obviously you need to get proper legal advice, but they are admissible by the court from what I understand. So definitely worth looking into our family wizard, because it's an excellent resource. So rewinding a little bit again. So we know that whatever situation you're going to go through the grief process, you've tried your 3 months of trying everything you possibly can to make this work, because as you say, it is a life-changing decision. What next? What preparations should be made? You've spoken to a number of lawyers, financial planners, etc., mediators, and you've got your team built.
Yeah.
What other preparations do we need? What things do we need to do?
Right. Well, I think first of all, we need to sort of prepare for the long haul, because it's never going to take less than 7 months to get divorced, and that is if you're lucky. So you need to feel in the right place emotionally, and whether we discussed before, that's with some therapy or with a divorce coach who can help with the emotions around divorce. I think it's good to get familiar with Form E. Everybody needs to complete a Form E. There's lots of different paperwork you need for the Form E. So if you become familiar with what's in the Form E, then that will be helpful. I think it's also really important to start looking at your expenditure, budget forecasts, talking to your financial planner with things to do with that. Looking at mortgage capacity. I think one of the things I would say, if your ex-partner is pushing you not to get legal advice, that's quite a red flag. Be very wary. You need to make sure that you do have the right support around you, whether it's legal support, always. Even if you're going through mediation, I would recommend you have legal advice alongside that. But you do find some people, some ex-partners will say, oh, no, we don't need a lawyer. We don't need this. We can do it ourselves. But often that's because the ex-partner is a bully and is just wanting you to agree with what they want. So I would always recommend legal advice, whatever happens. And as I say, you can speak to a number of legal professionals, and most of them give 15 to 30 minutes free a free call, so you can know sort of who works, and ask the same questions to everybody. Also find out what their experience is, because you want someone who's day in, day out dealing with a case that might be similar to yours. I can help, divorce coach can help with demystifying the divorce process. So I would suggest going through a divorce coach right at the beginning, because I can signpost you, first of all, to all these professionals I talked about, ones that I've rate, people like yourselves and other financial professionals, legal professionals, but I can talk about what the process could look like. I explain out of court options. And I think it's good to be prepped in that way before you start talking to solicitors.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've just talked for a long time there. And I was thinking,
I am going to just
on
rewind you a little bit, because you mentioned a form called the Form E,
yes.
and I'm sure our listeners who've listened to lots of episodes will be familiar with the For Me, but just in case there are people who just joined us today who haven't heard us before, could you just briefly explain what the For Me is and what the point of it is and
Yeah.
why it's so important?
Yeah, basically the Form E, you're putting together you're looking at sort of property, savings, investment, pensions. So you've got to put together sort of home valuations, home mortgages, recent statements. You need to have savings accounts, building bank account, copies of statements, the last 12 months, life insurance policies, business interests. It's basically showing what your financial standpoint is, and both sides have to produce all this information. It's really, well, everyone needs to do it. So it's important. And I think a tactic can be from one side to really stall, dig their heels in and delay the For Me, and that delays everything. And yeah, it's something you need to be very aware of, because it's um not a three-line whip. It's I don't know what the word is. It's gone. It's
It's vital. It's the
vital.
point, isn't it, of arranging financial settlement. It's the
Yeah,
starting point.
yeah,
I think something that is just worth saying. So the For Me is a court form that all solicitors will insist on you completing as the For Me, and you can Google it and you can find a copy of it so that you can see what might be involved. And we'll talk later in this series to fellow Connor in more detail about that. But what is worth bearing in mind is that some mediators use their own versions of the For Me. So they will collect the financial information for both of you in a slightly different way, but it essentially replicates everything that needs to be collected on the For Me. So it is worth having a look at it, getting familiar with it, knowing what information you're going to need and is going to be required, and starting to gather that together, I think is hugely important. But yeah, if you do read it and go, that looks a horrifically long form and it's going to be really complicated, don't worry too much. We will go into much more detail later on in this series about what that is. Can't speak either. We're having our tongues tied up today. I don't know what's been going on over the weekend, Arabella, but we're both struggling, aren't we?
I was going to sorry, I jump in for a second. You talked about mediation just then. I don't know if everyone knows this. In fact, I know that most people don't necessarily. But if you have children, the government give you a £500 voucher towards mediation.
Yeah.
That's quite important to know. Also, I find often solicitors say the Form E is their sort of bugbear. They're always chasing their clients to get their Form E together. And this is where, divorce coach comes in, because I can really help you get everything together, like just sit with you, whether it's in person or online, and take, right, we need this, we need that. Go and get this, go and get that. So you're organized, and therefore you don't have the solicitor chasing you. And guess what? When they chase you, they also charge you.
Yeah, absolutely. That is very worth mentioning it. You also mentioned before about seeing a therapist early on in the process if there are emotional things that you need to deal with. And something that I often say to my clients is you need to be in the best emotional place you can possibly be in, because you are going to be making, as you said before, life-changing decisions. You're going to decide what's going to happen with your financial future and with your children's future. And it's really important you're in a really, really good place. I know one of the things that you focus on with your clients is self-care. Can you talk to me a little bit about that and about what you're talking to your clients about?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Self-care, hugely important. And as you say, you've got to be in the best frame of mind to go through a divorce. You've got to be in the right place, emotionally regulated, and feel strong. Well, one of the things I do with my clients, and actually I've been doing this on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok recently. Every day I share a positive, practical tip of how you can lift your mood, or how you can feel positively strengthened. But we talk about various things you can do. I also know lots of tips and techniques to dial down emotions if you feel overwhelmed or you're feeling one of the divorce emotions. I say divorce emotions because there are a lot of emotions around divorce and a lot that are specifically because of the divorce. It's not because of something from your childhood necessarily, and that's what a therapist would deal with. But yeah, there's lots of tips I can give you that help you regulate yourself and help you regulate yourself as well as you go into meetings. You talked about writing when we were talking about writing something rather than sending it,
Yeah.
and journaling your thoughts, positive or negative, is a very healthy way to help get thoughts onto paper. Actually, it doesn't have to be paper. I write mine onto my notes on my phone, but it's out of your mind and onto something, and that helps clear your mind because you just want to have as much space as possible to think more strategically. But in terms of self-care, and part of my divorce cool circle that I recommend is having an exercise buddy as well, because not only being emotionally well, but by exercising, that also helps your emotions and that helps you healthy in body, in mind, eating well, sleeping well. So, and if you have an exercise buddy, then that's someone to encourage you to do whatever exercise you want to do. And sometimes when someone's saying, come on, let's go for a walk, let's go for a run, let's go to an exercise class, or let's go dancing. I like dancing. Then yeah, that's really helpful. But yeah, self-care is hugely important.
I think an exercise buddy is a great idea. So I have a running buddy, and we arranged to meet at. I mean, this may not sound ridiculously early to lots of people, but we often arrange to meet at like 8, half 8 on a weekend day, on a Sunday particularly. And I'm always like, oh, the alarm goes off. And I'm like, it's Sunday. What am I even thinking about? But because I've committed to somebody else, I always get my backside out of bed and get dressed and go and meet him. And we met on Sunday, and he was like, "What are we doing?" I was like, "I know, it's really early." And he said, "I was looking at my phone, hoping you were going to WhatsApp and cancel." And I was like, "I was doing the same," but neither of us did. And we went out and we did our run and felt much better and very virtuous for having done it. So that's a brilliant tip. I love that one. That's really good. Um, we're kind of coming to the end of our chat today. And I wondered if you could talk me through a little bit how you can provide support to clients and how they might contact you before we finish.
Yeah. So as I said earlier on, I think I would recommend as soon as you know or feel that divorce is the way things are going, that you contact a divorce coach. And then they have so much knowledge and can demystify the whole process that that's the first point of call. They can also recommend you to really highly rated legal professionals, finance professionals as well. And the way to contact me, I have a website. I'm called the Divorce Survival Coach. My website is basically that, thedivorcesurvivalcoach.com. And that is my name on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. If you were to find me on LinkedIn, I also work with corporates to help their employees. It's Arabella Paul. Yeah, that's the best way to find me. And working with me or with any divorce coach really saves money over the long run because you are spending less time sharing your emotions with your solicitor, and we can work through things strategically. I can prepare you for your meetings with the solicitors, and therefore saving time and money because you're just not clocking up the hours as much. One thing I would recommend as you're going through your divorce that I didn't mention is keep an eye, make a note of all the time you do spend on the phone, writing emails to your solicitor, so you don't get a complete surprise when the bill comes through.
That's good advice. I like that tip. You've recently set up a community, haven't you, for those going through divorce? Am I right in
Yes,
saying that?
I
Do you tell
am.
me a bit
I
more
have.
about that?
Yes. So when I was going through divorce, it's a very lonely time because your friends, or most of your friends, are not really understanding this process. I slightly liken it to childbirth. Unless you've gone through through it, and everyone's experience of childbirth and divorce is different. But unless you've really gone through it, you don't really know what it's like. And so I set up this thing called the Next Chapter Collective. And I'm doing it currently locally where I live in Tunbridge Wells. And it's for men and women to meet for drinks once a month. And it's just basically a social space, a friendly space to make friendships, connections with others who've been through a similar situation, who really get it, who know what it's like. But not only just to meet other people to hang out with, when you've got children and perhaps you don't have children for 1 week on or 1 week off, and you want to do things, but all your friends are busy because they've got their family, it's really nice to have others to go out with, to go for drinks, to go to the cinema, to go dancing, to to exercise with. But yeah, just to have a group of people who also have child-free weeks or days, and just, yeah, make a new set of friends. I'm not saying lose your old friends, just add to your friendship group. And I love it. And I'm actually going to, from the beginning of next year, I'm going to be doing these in London as well.
Excellent. That sounds fantastic. And they can find out about that on your website?
Yeah, well, there's a page on my website called The Next Chapter Collective. You can join a Facebook group. You can find out about my events on Eventbrite, but there's a link on there as well. I think, yeah, that's the way to go about it. Facebook group or Eventbrite.
Perfect. That's wonderful. Anything that I should have asked you that I haven't asked you?
I'm trying to think. I think we've gone through pretty much everything that I can think of. I don't know if I mentioned before, might have right at the beginning, but I think I was jumping the gun a bit about jumping straight into divorcing online. But one thing I would say that I would recommend you um, do the admin of filing for divorce online rather than your solicitor, because it's much cheaper that way because you're not paying the solicitor costs for them to do it when it's very easy to do it yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. There are a couple of tick boxes on there that I think you need to just be aware of when you are completing them online, but mostly you can find out about how to tick the right things on online. So yeah, definitely kind of Google that and have a look and make sure you're ticking the right boxes. I do know I did have a client who ticked the wrong box, or there was a box that they should have ticked and they didn't, or did tick and they, anyway, whichever way around. But just do a bit of research before you do, because I've always said exactly the same, but just do a bit of research before you submit it to make sure that you read the questions carefully. It sounds like an exam, before you submit them, because it is important that it's done right. um,
Exactly. You did have a question, and yes, you ask a divorce coach or solicitor, just to make sure you're doing it correctly. Yeah.
Absolutely. Perfect. Thank you for joining me today, Arabella. And I do want to also just mention, because you have recently won an award, and I just wanted to say many congratulations on that, because that's quite something. Do you want to tell us what the award's for?
Yes, so the award is the Prestige Awards 2025 2026 for relationship coaching services for the South of England.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
That's fantastic. Many congratulations on that.
thank
That's
you.
brilliant and absolutely well deserved. Thank you all for joining us today. We will be back next in a couple of weeks. I don't know why I'm saying next week. In a couple of weeks with our next episode. But thank you for joining us. If you have enjoyed and found this episode useful, please do leave us a 5-star review, because it does help us to get the word out more widely and help more people. So many thanks, and thank you for joining me, Arabella.
Thank you. Thank you so much.